Okay, so I am just in notes from yesterday. We're going to pick up with the notes that we were working with yesterday. And we're still working with this y equals mx plus b equation. But today we're going to be talking about the b. Okay, the b, if you remember from last year, stands for the y-intercept. B is the y-intercept. Okay. Right, and let's write a little bit about the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is on the y-axis. Okay, and it is the y value. Let me get a different color. It is the y value when x equals 0. Okay, another way to write that would be to say, if you were looking at the point, x would be 0, and whatever your y-intercept was would be your y value. So that would be your y-intercept, whatever was sitting in the y spot of your point. Okay, so today we're just going to go through the table and we're going to identify our y-intercept. And once we identify our y-intercept, we've already calculated our slopes yesterday, so we can go ahead and write our equation. Okay, so let's take a look at the first example. We're looking for our y-intercept. So we are looking for the y value when x is equal to 0. So I'm going to go down and look in my x column of this table, and I'm looking for where x is 0. And here it is. It's right here. Okay, so when y is 1, x is 0. That means that our y-intercept is 0, 1. And that means that our y-intercept, or b, equals 1. b is 1. Okay, so we know from yesterday that our slope, m, and I'm going to put that here too, we know that m is 2, and we know that b is 1. Okay, so when we write our equation for our lines, we are going to set up what we call a skeleton. Okay, so our skeleton equation is going to be y equals, and then we're going to put a big box for where our slope goes, x, and then plus a big box for where our y-intercept goes, or our b value goes. Why are we doing that? Well, we're doing that because when we're writing an equation in this form, the y and the x, they don't change. They're the variables. So what does change, depending on the question you're looking at, is the slope, which is your m, and the y-intercept, which is your b. So that's why we leave those boxes there, because we're going to fill those boxes in. Okay, yesterday we calculated the slope, which is our m. So that goes in the m spot, our 2 that we calculated yesterday. Today, we found the y-intercept, and we found that the y-intercept was 1. So that goes in for b. So your equation for the line is y equals 2x plus 1. Okay, let's take a look at number 2. Okay, again, remember, when we're looking for our y-intercept, we are looking for the value of y when x is 0. So we want to find where x is 0 in our table. And look, there it is. Okay, we have 0, 3, which means that our y-intercept, or b, is equal to 3, because that is the y value when x is 0. We know from yesterday that our slope, or our m, is 0.5. Those are the two pieces that we need to write our equation. So I'm going to set up my skeleton. And you should be doing the same. And then we're going to fill in what we know. We know m is negative 0.5, and we know b is 3. So our equation for the line that's represented in this table is y equals 0.5x plus 3. Let's take a look at one more example. Okay, so again, we're looking for that y-intercept. We're looking for where x is 0 in the table. But I don't see where x is 0 in this table. So what do you do if you have a table that doesn't have 0 in it? Well, you've got to work backwards in your pattern. Okay, so you'll notice from yesterday, and I'm just going to go over this, that if we were going forward, we were adding 1. Okay, we have to go backwards to get 0. So if we have to go backwards, that means that we have to do the opposite operation. So if we're going to go backwards from 1 to get 0, we've got to go backwards on the other side too. Okay, so going backwards would mean we're subtracting 1, and now we have 0. On the y side, when we were going forwards, we were adding 4. But now we have to go backwards. So we have to go backwards to find the value of y, which means instead of adding 4, we're going to subtract 4. And if I take 4 away from 11, that would give me 7. So now I have my y-intercept. My y-intercept is 0, 7, which means my y-intercept, or b, is equal to 7. Okay. So you might have to work backwards in a table on your homework. You might have to do it more than once. We got lucky and only had to go back 1 value. Sometimes you have to go back more. Okay, but you still should be able to work backwards in the pattern to find it. All right, let's draw the skeleton. Skeleton equation for y equals mx plus b. And then we're going to fill in our slope, or our m, that we calculated yesterday, which was 4. And then we're going to fill in our b value, or our y-intercept, which we just found today, to be 7. So your equation is y equals